Today, we uncover stories of tourists fatally mauled by deadly animals while on vacation. From a tourist chasing danger for a sardine-run video, to a quiet family boating trip that turned fatal after one small mistake drew a hippo straight toward them. But first, we begin at dusk on a river in northern Australia, where still water and a low tripod concealed an ambush at the edge. It was September 7, 2016, at a signed river access track outside a lookout in Kakadu National Park, late golden hour thinning the crowds. The water below the platform looked calm enough to lie in. It reflected the sky like polished metal, and the last tourists were drifting away with their phones down, unaware that the stillness masked a large estuarine crocodile holding position along the shaded bank, exactly where foot traffic naturally drifted for photos. Cal Varan was 24, a former cafe barista from the Midlands on a farm work visa, who had learned that online attention came faster than steady pay. Careful in daily life, he kept lists, took unwanted shifts, and managed debts that never quite disappeared. As his posts gained traction, he stood closer to the edges and framed himself smaller against bigger landscapes, letting proximity read as confidence. After a week of rain cut his hours and left him behind on hostel rent, he walked the lookout trail that evening with a simple plan. He had scouted the river earlier, watched families come and go, and knew where people usually stood. He wasn't planning to swim. He was planning to stand, take the shot, and leave. The river at dusk lay broad and dark, its edge cut with mud and reeds, cicadas growing louder as the light thinned and the air cooled. Saltwater crocodiles dominate these waterways, with large adult males commonly measuring 13 to 17 feet and weighing well over 1,000 pounds, capable of explosive bursts over short distances. Their eyes and nostrils sit high on the skull, allowing them to breathe and observe while nearly submerged, and their attacks rely on short, sudden lunges from shallow margins rather than pursuit. They favor ambush at edges, reading vibration through water and mud, conserving energy until a brief, decisive strike. At the car park, a ranger board listed recent crocodile sightings, and the waterline was marked with a bold, no swimming symbol. A couple at the lookout mentioned seeing a crocodile 2 days earlier before moving on. Cal set his tripod low, started recording, kicked off his shoes and stepped into the water, wading from his ankles to just below his knees to deepen the frame as the sun dropped. Near the bank, a long, dark shape held position with only a slight break in the surface. It resembled a log unless you knew what to look for. Cal took 2 more steps and paused to check the framing. His weight shifted. The mud released a soft suction sound. The water tremored outward in rings. The strike came as a single, explosive upward surge from less than a body length away, so close there was no time to step back. The crocodile's head and upper torso broke the surface together, driving forward with concentrated force that hit Cal at the hips and upper thigh. The impact folded him backward, forcing the air from his lungs in a sharp, involuntary release. His yell fractured immediately into a choking gasp as his hand slapped down at the waterline and scraped through mud and reed stems without finding purchase. The jaws closed and locked, and the pull came instantly, strong and direct, making the shoreline slide out of view as if the ground itself had tipped away. There was no struggle at the edge, and no prolonged splashing. The crocodile moved straight into deeper water, relying on mass and steady leverage rather than violent motion. Cal surfaced once, head and shoulders breaking through, arms moving without coordination as he tried to draw air. The grip never loosened. He was pulled under again as the animal adjusted its hold and angle. On the bank, the phone on the tripod recorded the moment in fragments. The initial splash, ripples spreading outward, and the water darkening as silt and blood rose together. Beneath the surface, a brief roll disturbed the water once more. Then the motion stopped, and the river smoothed over in seconds, returning to an unnatural calm. A couple walking back toward the car park heard the scream and stopped. They saw the tripod standing alone, the water still moving, and then nothing at all. One called emergency services while the other kept a phone aimed at the river line, recording the silence that followed. The dispatcher stayed on the line, logging the call at about 6:40 p.m. as the light faded. Rangers from the nearest patrol reached the access point in about 18 minutes. By then, the light was gone. They secured the area, launched a boat with spotlights, and searched along the bank for signs of disturbance. Given the attack profile and lack of surface activity, the response was formally downgraded to recovery within the first hour. Additional staff arrived, and the river stretch was closed overnight. The phone was recovered from the tripod, intact. The tripod was knocked but remained upright, partially shielded by reeds. The recording showed calm water, Cal stepping forward, a sudden eruption, one cut-off sound, then silence. Rangers used the footage to establish the exact entry point and timing. It was logged as evidentiary material and reviewed internally for safety training, guiding how they searched and where. The coroner's report later listed the cause of death as catastrophic blunt force trauma and drowning resulting from a crocodile attack, with injuries consistent with a large saltwater crocodile. The interval between initial contact and full submersion was measured in seconds, leaving no chance for rescue. Local coverage remained brief, limited to safety notices and park advisories. The access track reopened days later with added warning signs, and the footage was retained by park staff for training and incident review rather than public release. The river returned to silence as if nothing had happened, and months earlier, on the opposite side of the world, a warm midday at False Bay would prove just as unforgiving when a man stepped past the flags and into open water. It was February 3, 2014 at Miller's Point, where calm midday conditions masked an active feeding zone just offshore. A dense school of sardines had moved in overnight, circling tightly above a steep drop-off, drawing tour boats, swimmers, and cameras. Shark warning flags were raised and the spotter board showed recent activity, but the water looked clear and controlled enough that the risk felt distant. Min-jae Park, 28, was visiting from South Korea on his first independent overseas trip. He worked an office job in Seoul and had no formal diving or snorkeling training beyond rental gear and brief instruction. Traveling for him wasn't about escape so much as proof, evidence that he could step outside routines and return with something tangible. He planned carefully, read reviews, and avoided obvious risks, but he trusted images more than warnings. He had been watching videos online on the sardine run where tourists were suspended inside massive bait balls, fish flowing around them in coordinated motion, and wanted to recreate that image. He rented basic snorkel gear, accepted the brief instructions without questions, declined a guided swim to avoid looking inexperienced, and entered the water alone. His plan was simple and time-bound: swim out, film a few seconds, and return to shore before anyone noticed he had gone past the flags. False Bay regularly hosts great white sharks that patrol along depth changes where schooling fish and seals concentrate. Adult sharks in this area commonly exceed 14 to 16 feet in length and use vertical ambush tactics, approaching from below where contrast and glare reduce visibility. During baitball events, sharks often make rapid single-strike passes, relying on surprise and momentum rather than prolonged pursuit. Min-jae swam past the red and black boundary flags and positioned himself directly beneath the center of the sardine school. The fish tightened and rotated around him, forming a dense column. He dove shallowly once, resurfaced, then submerged again to align the camera upward. From above, the bait ball remained intact. From below, the fish compressed suddenly, a known response to an approaching predator. The strike came from depth in a straight vertical ascent. The shark hit from beneath with its jaws open, making contact at Min-jae's upper thigh and hip region. The force lifted his lower body partially out of the water and rotated him sideways. The bite was a single, powerful clamp and release, consistent with an investigatory predatory strike. The shark disengaged immediately and dropped back into deeper water. Min-jae resurfaced within seconds. His movements were uncoordinated, driven by upper body motion only. The injury had severed the femoral artery and surrounding muscle, causing rapid arterial bleeding. Blood spread quickly at the surface, thinning as it mixed with the swell. His kicking slowed almost at once, then stopped entirely as circulatory collapse set in. He rolled face down and drifted toward shallower water with the current. The shark did not re-engage. After the initial strike, it remained out of sight, consistent with great white behavior following a single high-energy bite when prey stops moving effectively. Lifesavers entered the water once no further shark activity was visible and pulled Min-jae onto wet sand. He was unresponsive, with no purposeful movement, no detectable pulse, and signs of severe blood loss. Paramedics arrived approximately 12 minutes after the initial emergency call and began advanced life support. Resuscitation efforts were unsuccessful, and death was pronounced on the beach. A preliminary medico-legal report listed the cause of death as catastrophic hemorrhage due to a shark bite to the upper leg. with rapid loss of consciousness resulting from vascular collapse. There was no evidence of prolonged struggle after the initial strike. The beach was closed temporarily, and officials reiterated warnings about entering bait balls and swimming beyond flagged zones during active fish runs. The sardines dispersed within days, and shark activity returned to baseline levels. The surf closed over the blood, and phones kept recording. And 3 years later, inland from the coast, a roadside stop outside Chiang Mai showed how danger doesn't always charge. It sometimes stands chained and waiting. It was November 19, 2017, at a roadside elephant camp on the outskirts of Chiang Mai, the kind of place tour buses stop briefly between longer attractions. The incident didn't begin with panic or shouting. It began with routine. A loose line of tourists waiting their turn. A tethered adult bull Asian elephant standing in partial shade. The tragedy unfolded in full view, not instantly, but over several disorganized seconds, slowly enough that people kept watching even after it was clear something had gone very wrong. Milo Suthan was 27, a call center training supervisor from Johor Bahru. His job was strict and repetitive. He trained new hires on rules, call scripts, and error reporting. Friends saw him as organized and competitive, someone who planned everything and tracked progress closely. He was respected at work, but didn't stand out much. This trip to northern Thailand was his first international vacation without family. He booked it after a small promotion that raised expectations more than pay. He wanted something concrete to show for it. Milo documented the trip carefully. He wasn't trying to be an influencer, but he compared his posts to friends whose trips looked bolder. He followed travel pages that rewarded close-up shots and risky moments. Elephants showed up often. Warnings were usually buried under the photos. Milo focused on the images. He told himself he wasn't riding one, just getting a strong picture. A once-in-a-lifetime shot. The photos he'd posted so far felt ordinary. The elephant camp was meant to change that. The camp sat beside a 2-lane road, a paved stop with 3 elephants chained by the ankles to ground posts and a wooden platform used for photos. Asian elephants are powerful animals. Adult bulls can weigh over 10,000 pounds. Their neck and shoulders are built to push trees and heavy objects. Chains limit how far they move, not how hard they can push. Stress shows through stiff tails, flared ears, head rocking, and shifting weight. Staff moved visitors through in quick succession, repeating the same instructions each time. No climbing, no touching the head, photos only from the platform. Milo watched as another tourist was waved back for stepping too close. He registered it, then saw the handler turn away and continue ushering the line forward. The elephant's tail was held stiff, not swaying. Its ears stayed partially flared. Its head rocked once, then again, slow and deliberate. He stepped a little closer to stay in frame. A handler gestured for Milo to move away. Milo nodded, but didn't stop immediately. He edged toward the elephant's shoulder, near the chain anchored to a concrete post. From that angle, the animal appeared still. It made no sound. Milo gripped the railing and shifted his weight, testing his footing. The chain lay slack. Nothing felt urgent. He lifted his foot to step up. The elephant reacted instantly. Its head snapped sideways, pulling the chain tight with a loud crack. The force came from the shoulder and neck. Milo lost his balance before he could let go. His shoulder hit the concrete, then his hip. The impact knocked the air out of him. He tried to get up, hands slipping on dust and spilled water. The elephant surged again, confused and overstimulated. Milo was pinned between the animal and the wall. The pressure was steady, not a single hit. His chest visibly collapsed. His knees gave out. Handlers rushed in, shouting, hitting the flank with short sticks, pulling the chain. The elephant didn't pull back right away. It leaned forward once more. Milo fell onto his side, then his back. His legs moved briefly, then stopped. The elephant stepped forward half a pace before multiple handlers pulled it back. The chain scraped against the post. Someone screamed. Others backed away. Staff called emergency services within a minute. A tourist nurse reached Milo in under 2 minutes, checked his airway, and felt for a pulse. His breathing was shallow and irregular, his chest barely rising. There was no heavy external bleeding. The handlers on site had no physical barriers between them and the animal, and no tranquilization equipment available to intervene. An ambulance arrived roughly 14 minutes later. Paramedics initiated advanced life support, but there was no response. The coroner later reported severe blunt force injuries, multiple broken ribs, a crushed breastbone, lung damage, and internal bleeding. The The cause of death was chest compression leading to suffocation. Survival after collapse was unlikely. The camp released a statement attributing the incident to guest behavior, and local news covered it briefly before moving on. The pavement went quiet again after the crowd scattered, and 2 years earlier, on a bend of the Zambezi River, calm water and a guided promise of safety would collapse just as suddenly. It was May 28, 2015, on a calm bend of the Zambezi River in Zambia, the kind of quiet morning that convinces people danger is theoretical, distant, something managed by guides and rules, right up until the water explodes and everyone realizes how little time there ever was. Owen Price was 34, an electrical technician from Sheffield who spent his days rewiring aging office blocks and weekends fixing friends' appliances for beer money. He had a reputation for being steady and practical, the guy who checked voltages twice and never rushed a job. Vacations were rare. For 2 years, he and his partner, Nia Bako, had been setting aside small amounts from their paychecks, skipping nights out, booking this trip only after convincing themselves it was sensible. A guided canoe outing felt controlled. It looked slow, scenic, and safer than walking trails with predators they couldn't see. Nia was 32, a school administrator in South London, organized to the point of habit. She planned itineraries, printed confirmations, and read safety notes. She chose the lodge because it advertised experienced river guides and strict wildlife protocols. Owen trusted that. He also wanted photographs. He was not reckless, but he liked proof, wide shots of real places to bring back to co-workers who never left home. The canoe trip promised close water views and reflections that hiking could not deliver. When the guide described hippos as dangerous, Owen listened, nodded, and mentally placed the risk into a category he believed was actively controlled. The river that morning was glassy and pale, broken only by reeds, low islands, and a deceptively steady current that looked slow on the surface, but pulled consistently toward deeper channels. Hippos are not passive river animals. Adult bulls can weigh 3,300 to 4,000 pounds, accelerate faster than a human can react, and treat water as defended territory. They surface to breathe, not to rest, and will block paths and charge anything that drifts between them and deeper channels. In water, their attacks rely less on biting and more on ramming, capsizing, crushing, and forced submersion. Most attacks happen in boats that move too close without meaning to. Before launching, the guide delivered a clear briefing. Hippos look still. Distance matters. If one surfaces ahead, turn away immediately. Owen and Nia repeated the instructions back, life vests buckled, paddles resting flat. 20 minutes in, they saw a pod far upriver. Another canoe slowed and held wide. Their guide angled away, but the current pushed them laterally, pulling them toward a narrower channel. Owen lifted his phone, asking if they could drift a little closer for a photo. Nia hesitated, watching the water, then sat back when the guide did not immediately object. The canoe continued drifting longer than intended. The first sign was not sound, but displacement. Water rose ahead of them in a smooth dome. A bull hippo surfaced directly between their canoe and the open river, head massive, nostrils flaring. The guide shouted to backpaddle. Owen dug his blade in. The canoe rotated unevenly, resisting the turn as the current pressed against its side. The hippo did not retreat. It surged forward, covering the distance in a few powerful strokes. The impact came from the side, a blunt, crushing force that lifted the canoe and tipped it violently. The hull rolled. Owen and Nia hit the water, tangled in paddles and straps. The water was immediately deeper than it had appeared from the surface. Nia surfaced coughing and clawed at the overturned canoe. Owen went under once, reappeared briefly gasping and off balance, then vanished again as the hippo drove in, its head pushing downward with unstoppable weight. The guide shouted and paddled hard, reaching for Nia as the water churned. She scrambled onto the slick hull, screaming, hands shaking so badly she could barely hold. Beneath the surface, the bull hippo forced Owen down repeatedly, using its mass to pin and shove rather than thrash, driving him away from air. The water boiled with silt and bubbles. A second canoe approached, but stayed well outside the channel, the guide shouting warnings from a distance. Then the churning stopped. The river smoothed quickly, leaving only widening rings. The guide radioed the lodge immediately, voice breaking but precise. Another boat arrived within 9 minutes, engines cutting across the quiet. They searched the surface, then the edges, calling Owen's name, scanning for movement. Lodge staff contacted emergency services and a ranger unit. Nia was pulled aboard, shaking uncontrollably, vest half torn, eyes fixed on the water where nothing moved. A medical team reached the dock 28 minutes after the call. Owen was recovered a short distance downstream near vegetation, unresponsive. CPR was attempted briefly and stopped. He showed no spontaneous breathing, pulse, or neurological response. The layman coroner report later listed the cause of death as traumatic asphyxia and blunt force injuries, consistent with a large animal strike and forced submersion. There were extensive crush injuries to the chest and abdomen, broken ribs, and internal hemorrhaging. The report noted death would have occurred within minutes of the initial submersion. The aftermath unfolded quietly. A tourist's GoPro, mounted on the guide's vest, recorded the warnings, the shout to paddle back, the impact, and then audio that degraded into splashing and engine noise before cutting to sudden silence. It spread among travelers first, not newsrooms. The lodge suspended canoe trips for weeks and rerouted boats farther from known hippo channels. A brief advisory ran in regional outlets. Owen Price's name appeared once, then faded. Nia returned home alone, carrying photographs she never wanted, and a memory defined less by fear than by how fast calm water can turn final. The river smoothed over as if nothing had broken its surface, and in the dry heat of Kruger National Park, a different kind of stillness would end the moment a car door opened. It was July 12, 2018, on a self-drive loop inside Kruger National Park, the kind of late afternoon when animals lie low in the heat and tourists begin to relax their guard, when a single opened car door broke the unspoken boundary between predator and observer, turning a routine wildlife stop into a recorded death that unfolded in full view of strangers who could not intervene. Remy Ko was 29, a junior architect from Singapore who had never missed a deadline and rarely missed a detail. He worked long hours drafting commercial interiors, the kind of work that rewarded patience more than flair, and he had built a reputation at his firm as reliable and methodical rather than bold. Outside work, photography was his one indulgence. He saved aggressively, skipped nights out, and spent 2 years planning this trip, convinced that Africa would finally justify the cost of the heavy professional telephoto lens he had purchased, despite limited field experience. This was not a thrill-seeking vacation. It was a long-delayed reward, and in his mind, a chance to prove discipline could translate into mastery outside the office. Remy traveled alone and rented a compact SUV at the park gate, studying the wildlife brochure carefully. He followed speed limits, stopped where others stopped, and avoided anything that looked reckless. The photographs he wanted were clean and precise, framed like architectural elevations. Late in the afternoon, when several cars slowed near a fully maned adult male lion resting in sparse grass just off the gravel road, Remy felt he had found the shot he had been waiting for. The problem, he complained to no one, was that the window frame ruined the composition. From inside the car, the angle felt compromised, the foreground cluttered. He believed that stepping out briefly, staying low, and moving slowly would make the difference between an ordinary image and a defining one. The road curved gently through open savanna, pale grass flattened by heat, with scattered acacia trees casting thin, uneven shadows that did little to cool the air. Adult male lions in this region often exceed 420 pounds, capable of explosive bursts exceeding 35 miles per hour over short distances, and are ambush predators that key on silhouetted movement, separation from vehicles, and upright human posture, which they typically do not associate with cars until a person exits one. Park rules were printed in large type on every rental map and brochure, reinforced by warning signs near rest areas and repeated by rangers at the gate. Do not exit your vehicle at any time. Other drivers on the road gestured sharply and honked when Remy eased his SUV to a stop. The lion lay with its head down, body loose, tail still, a resting posture that can rapidly shift into alert readiness. Remy rolled his window down, leaned out with the camera, then frowned and shook his head. He unbuckled his seatbelt. A woman in the car behind him waved both hands, then pointed at her own door and shook her head. Remy opened his door slowly, crouched and stepped out, placing both feet on the gravel while keeping the camera raised. The lion's head lifted immediately. Its ears rotated forward, eyes fixed, shoulders rising as muscle tension gathered along its spine. Remy froze, knees bent, camera still to his face. For a fraction of a second, nothing else moved. Then Remy shifted his weight backward, reaching for the door handle. The lion closed the distance in 2 to 3 strides, a low rush of muscle and dust that crossed the road in under 2 seconds, faster than anyone could shout. The initial impact came as a full-body collision, knocking Remy flat onto the gravel before he could turn. The camera skidded several feet away. The lion struck again immediately, forepaws pinning Remy's upper torso as its jaws clamped down across the side of the neck and shoulder junction. Not a clean throat bite, but a crushing hold. A horn blared continuously from a car to the left, a raw mechanical sound that cut through the screaming. Remy's legs kicked once, scraping against the tire of his own vehicle. Dust and blood mixed beneath his head as the lion adjusted its grip, tightening and reseating its jaws. Drivers screamed from behind windshields, some reversing blindly, others frozen in place. No one exited a vehicle. The lion began dragging Remy away from the road, claws digging into his clothing and skin to gain purchase. The movement was not rushed. It was deliberate, covering only several yards toward low brush. Remy's movements weakened rapidly, then stopped entirely. The horn continued until the driver stalled the engine. The lion paused, standing over the body, head low, sides heaving, reassessing the noise and vehicles. Multiple witnesses called the park emergency number within seconds. Ranger vehicles arrived approximately 11 minutes later without sirens, engines revving as they formed a barrier. They pushed cars back and used engine noise and coordinated vehicle movement to haze the lion away. Only after the animal fully disengaged did recovery procedures begin. A preliminary coroner assessment later described fatal cervical compression, extensive trauma to the upper chest, and airway compromise, with death occurring very shortly after initial contact, consistent with a large predator attack. Dashcam footage from 2 vehicles showed the sequence clearly: the door opening, the lion's immediate fixation, the charge, and the takedown. The footage circulated quietly among park staff and investigators. In the weeks that followed, the park added additional warning signage along self-drive routes and increased ranger patrols during peak hours. Remy Coe's name did not trend. His death became a footnote in safety briefings, a reminder that rules in predator territory are not suggestions, and that the margin between observation and attack can be measured in a single step. Thanks for watching. If you liked these stories, click here.